G'day folks, and welcome to another edition of Kev's Workshop. At the moment I'm down the side of the house. You see me tunnel in the background and my second rail car. Now I'll uncover that for you in just a moment. But for those of you who have been a long-term viewer of my Like a Man 3801 channel, or a long-time viewer of my Kev's Workshop website, you'll see progress of this rail car as I've been building it. This one and its sister rail car, which is already in service, started them both in 2017, and by 2022 the first rail car was complete. By 2023 it was undergoing testing and had its first paying passengers. So this is the second rail car, which I'm about to uncover for you in just a moment. Part of this video is more about the new set of bogies I've been building for this rail car, and that I'll get to show you a bit more about in just a moment. So just bear with me, and I'll uncover the second rail car to show you at what stage I'm at now that we're in April 2026. So, take the steel tubing off. Let's have me hold the tarp down. Don't worry folks, I look better behind the camera than I do in front of it. I'm told I look much better in the dark. But hey, I don't take myself seriously, hardly take myself anywhere. Because it's stored outside all the time, it's the only way I can sort of semi-protect it. My line here at home is roughly 47 metres worth of track. So I've got to put all this stuff in such a way to hold the tarp down, and in such a way that it's protected from the weather. If I had a big enough property I'd be happy. Then that way you can have a lockable workshop, and then with a lockable workshop I'd be able to have it uncovered all the time. Hopefully this won't be too boring for you. That will become another doorway vestibule, but this one's a little undersized. Howling sirens, it means we'll have a howling dog soon. Okay, this is a slightly different view. Yeah, it's a Ken doll, for those who are interested. I might call this one Ben, as in bend over. No, Ben not. But the first one I called him Nicholas, because when we got him he was totally naked, so we called him Nicholas, as in Nick her less. However, this one, I've got to find a name for this one, so somebody might want to send me in a few suggestions. But if I have a look at here, I'll come around this side just to show it is powered up. So the desto board, that's all it is something I printed up on the computer, so you can sort of see through that. This is variable, so it can be bright in the day, dull at night. I'll just see if I can show that to you. So I can dim that down and brighten that up accordingly as at maximum brightness for the daylight. And then all this just needs to slot into here. I've still got to build the roof for this and the spectacle plate that goes in front. But yes, I've got marker lights, I've got tail lights, so it doesn't matter which way you go with it. And then low beam should come in, and then the high beam should come in as well. So all going well, you should have all of those lights visible on the view. And we also happen to have on board, that's easy enough reached in and got to. But yeah, so the horn for this is off a VS Commodore. That's just like our station horn. I've got to get a mainline horn so we've got something out there to see. Should I say with that horn? It should be to hear, not see. Looking in the side window, yes, I do have the driver's controls. And if we come up over the top of all this, and I'll remove the card out the way, you should be able to see the driver's dashboard from above. So without the roof in place, that's roughly a view of the driver's dashboard. Heritage cream is the internal colour, so there's like a yellowish colour. And I've done the entire internal of the cab in the heritage cream, and as we look around from the front, see it's all the same. So for those of you who haven't seen the first Railcar, this second one will be almost identical to it, and you can see the LED light bar from above. And if I slot this down, I've got a little tray that this should be slotting into, and all going well, you may see some of it in this shot. It's supposed to be hidden and out of view. Okay, with the cab roof, as we come down here, we've got the pass-through box. Now, this pass-through box is literally what I refer to as being wires passing through it. If I come up over here, you can see off this the horn button, the lighting controls, tail lights to power off, destinations up here. That is another button for another function which I haven't put in yet. I'll come to that later. That's where the speed control plugs into. This is one half of it, the other half I'll have to bring on out. But to show you where the speed control actually sits on this, it's here. This little unit here runs across quite a fair distance, good 6 inches or something like that. And then come on around here, 24 volts comes in on these two. The forward reverse voltage comes out here on these two. Travels through, I've got a bit of convoluted tubing there just to remind me, and it comes through to the Anderson plug. This Anderson plug, the idea of having that there, whoops, is simply so that when this or the other Railcar becomes a tail car, what will happen, the power from the opposite Railcar will come in on these sets of wires here. These are the motor wires, so front and rear motor, so each one's tagged. So you got 2 into here, 2 into there, 1 into here and 1 into here. So this is your power voltage coming in to the motors from the speed control, which is up here. So that'll come in, it'll go out this way on these 4 wires. Thing is, when I'm powering off the opposite Railcar, power will be coming into this way, and by breaking the connection it'll save me having back feed going this way into the speed control. And at $100 odd each a control, I can't afford to keep blowing them. So this, when it comes to being the leading Railcar, that will plug in. I'm not going to do that properly yet, but that, once it's plugged in, that'll have continuous power coming through. But when it's a tail car, I disconnect it, stops power coming back this way. But in behind here, there's the width of the box, same height as the bracket. That's the actual electronics to it in the back here. And up through here, these 2 bits of convoluted tubing, that's power down to the front and rear motors. Comes down through the floor, underneath this lot of wire, that's only to the front motor. That'll get trimmed up soon. And then if we look at it from down this way, follow down the back end of the Railcar. And this is a borrowed pair of bogies I've got on at the moment. Been borrowing them for the last 2 more years. they've got to go back to me, mate. This terminal plug, if I move that around, that's what the rear motor will get connected into, and that is parallel wired into this Anderson plug down the back. So if you can see that one, so power coming into this terminal block goes out to the Anderson plug, and that is a multiple unit to the second or first rail car. In Western Australia we use chopper couplings in the full size, and in 7 1/4 we also use the same thing. We have a safety chain, we have the actual chopper, and if I just bring this around you can get to see how that works. It drops down, there's a bolt sitting on the other chopper and they hook together. Very simple, very effective, and what I'll do too, on this one here you can see that's got a bit of play. An old engine valve spring, generally the Holden valve springs that are used. That's about the only good thing a Holden's good for. Sorry, all those Holden fanatics will be disgusted. But anyway, so you can use any old valve spring, but in general Holden valve springs are what we use here in WA. So taking you from down the back here, if I zoom out and come up, you see the whole rail car, and at the moment I've got the rear end partly open. So there's the seat support which is there, it's a bit better view for you, and that's the vinyl work waiting to be put into place properly, as is the backrest. There's backrest being the back end of the rail car. Once I get it sorted out, that'll be all located properly, and I've got an old towel at the moment as the seat cover. So it's all sort of folded up at this end, and there's another seat cover up here. Now this will come out the way. Ready, chuck, done. Well, that'll fall. And what you'll see here is another backrest. This is something else I've been building for this rail car and the other rail car, and it will sit this way up. Now the reason for this, when this becomes a tail car, or the other rail car becomes a tail car, this backrest is for the comfort of passengers who are travelling in the opposite direction. So when we look at this, and what I'll do, put the tail lights on for you. Yep, I just saw a bit there, didn't you? Anyway, so when this is a tail car arrangement, you've got the backrest, and we're looking up towards what will become the leading end. And the first rail car, well, underneath that yellow type is another carriage. So underneath there, if we pretended that was the other rail car, when they're connected together, people in this one will be facing this way. Now the good idea about this, I've got drop doors on both sides, and both of these are hinged. It's exactly a copy of the first one. As we come on down, you see the hinging there. There's another one there. 4 hinges in total. And up underneath here, there's the springing arrangement for the door lock. So depending what you end up doing, whether you ride as a front or back passenger, if I come up underneath here, you get to see the locking mechanism a bit different. What I really need to do with this is get the sheet metal onto it, and that sheet metal I've got here, bear with me, there it is. It's all coiled up, 3 metres worth by 1.5 metres. So that's got to go onto the second rail car. I've got to get it laser cut down to size. So yeah, looking at the rail car, I've got the sheet metal for it. It's just got to be cut to size, get the doors cut in, and this isn't too far off being tested up and down a main line. With this, I've got a handle on the back of here, Might not be too easy to see, but the idea of it. So I grab it from behind, take that out of the way, and I put the seat at the other end. Part of this seat design is that the roof line will follow this lump of wood. It's only 42mm by 19mm, and that supports against the edge of the roof. So when this becomes a leading end, that's the sort of view you'd have of the controls and a head. So even though this part of it's about the rail car, next section is about the add-on to it. Okay folks, here we go. For the last 2 years at least, I've been working on these secretly and in behind the scenes. But, you know, amongst all my projects I normally have on the go, this has been one of the bigger projects. Again, 7¼ inch for those who are interested. And each one of these motors, a 450 watt worth of motor, and they run at 24 volts each. They are wired together in parallel. So this one here will be wired in reverse when it's a front, and that one will be wired in normal, which is the rear bogie. To give you some idea on the design of these, they follow my original design which I've done on the first pair, and quite simply putting it, down here we've got a bicycle caliper for bike brake onto a disc. Now it's only a park brake, so I wouldn't go stressing about how good a grip it is, but basically the electric motor becomes a electric brake. When you cut the power down to minimum, it'll roll for a while, go into regeneration. As soon as you cut power, that becomes the brake as well. And I'll tell you what, when it pulls you up very hard. So yeah, I wouldn't go stressing too much about that. The end of these, they've got these silly little T-plugs as I call them. They don't handle a great deal of current, seriously. They're good for lightweight use, but the rail car is around 300 odd kilograms worth of weight. So the amount of current draw on these motors are around 25 to 30 amps worth. So when you're drawing more than that, it sort of tends to not be fun with these plugs. So that's why I'm going to a terminal block. You'll notice down here on my bogie design, this bit of steel plate. If we can get down here close enough and underneath, you can sort of see there's bolts here, bolt there. You loosen those off and they're threaded through this steel plate. So to adjust them, these were originally at a fixed point, as you can see where I've drilled through originally. But because of the chain and chain needing tension, these axles have to be flexible out and back accordingly. So this tensioner is designed to take up the tension of the chain. When the rail car is on the pivot, which is here, this whole bolster will drop down about 1 or 2 mil, and that should be riding on these rollers down here, or actually should be about a 1 or 2 mil gap between there and the underside of the chassis. Down here, that's the pivot point. Because my bogies are the same as the original pair, and I'll hopefully have the link put into the video for you, showing the original pair. You can see here it's a H frame, so it means both sides are able to independently pivot, both up and down, and pivot around corners. And I shall hopefully demonstrate that for you in just a moment. If I get this wire out of the way a minute, you can sort of see off here. Now these two pillow blocks, I'll get this wire out of the way. Those two pillow blocks have got grease nipples on there. They are locked onto the axle, so the plate can't shift sideways. That's the actual main drive chain for this bogie, same on the other bogie, and this is the one linked to the other axle, as you can see from above. and basically underneath is a steel plate. It's about 4 or 5 mil thick, I forget now exactly, and because of the motor and that, it needs the tension, but these are flexible. If I can compress this spring for you. Not easy, trying to hold the camera in one hand. Yeah. Just see that little bit of there. It's like having a shock absorber under a car. When the motor kicks in, that'll take up the compression and then relax again. So these have been quite a fair bit of time in the building. Back in 2025, I had to go into hospital, so I ended up having to have at least 6 months out of action. So these are still a bit behind schedule. Yeah, by tipping this up, you can now see an underneath view of how I've got these designed. Over here are the bolts. These 4 here are for the pillow blocks. These 4 are the motor adjustments. Up in here you can see there's a spring, hopefully. And that spring's just keeping tension between the bolster and the side frame. So hopefully with this one you'll be able to see the underneath details of how it looks. Okay, if I would just wheel this one back a bit, you can see on this one, all going well. Let's bear with me a moment. Make a little adjustment. Okay, if I kneel on what I call the braking axle to the power axle, again you can twist all this quite a fair bit. And again, the other way. So the whole idea is that these axles can independently travel up and down or twist and flex according to the worst case scenario type track. The pivoting is done here, so once the carriage bolsters here and it pivots to go around cornering, that's one thing, but these can independently flex up and down together or independently in whichever way you need it. So these as a flexible high-speed bogie is what I've designed them as. Overall, you're looking, well, certainly the axle centre to centre is 360 odd mil, and then adjusted out or back as you need to, being a powered bogie. The original bogies were never designed to be powered, so that was a later modification I did during the course of construction. These are built exactly the same way as the other ones, in that these are designed as powered bogies. So I've modified the other pair as a test. They work so beautiful, I'm doing identical on this one. The only difference is where I've got the motor bolt and mounting down here, if you can see that. On the old bogies I've got it on this side. It doesn't really matter left or right, as long as it holds a plate from coming up and letting it come down. So if I was to tip these up, they're a weighty pair, but that gives you the underneath detail from a different perspective. I would assume that at this stage, without measuring it on actual scales, I can only assume that these are about probably 5 to 10 kilos a bogie, but that's something I'll have to confirm at a later date once I end up getting the scales out. So this one here, I've just put the cable temporarily. Now people often wonder how trains steer around corners. So, I shall show you. Okay, I'm going to try attempt to show you this. I've got a bit of aluminium square tubing. Alright, then if I can get into that pivot to go along my track, I'll be pushing this so you can see what happens. On a straight, and you've got to remember too, this track is set up for 5-inch gauge plus 3.5 inch, and it can also run 45mm or G scale. Alright, now up ahead of us you can see the corner. Now I've also got a flexible point. And the idea of wheel flanges are what steers a train in and around a corner. I'm just focusing also here on the front. If we come out around here, you can sort of see here my track. Some of the bogie dynamics. This is the end of 47 metres worth of track. So as we flip over, go to the opposite side. Let's get this thing right. Oh, don't go there then. So you can hopefully see as to how it steers into a corner. This is a very tight radius corner. I forget now how many metres I've got it down to. Just show you there. And coming through my flexible point. That roughly gives you some indication or idea on how this is working when it's underneath the rail car. Now, for those of you who have noted, underneath the seat was these three items. It's my hand crank, which I made up myself out of a bit of steel rod. I scored two of these scissor lifts off the council clean-up. They need a lot of cleaning up, but they work beautiful. And this bit of scrap steel plate. You might be wondering what all this is and how I use it. Well, to jack the rail car up off its bogie and re-rail it, or to do underfloor inspections and stuff, this is one of the methods. Just like a motor vehicle needs a jack to lift up to change a tyre, this is done very similar. Okay, first things first, steel plate goes in. Once that's sitting across the tracks, I need to get a piece that's wide enough to go across the base of this. Once all this goes in underneath, start winding the scissor jack up to suit. I may have to make a few different adjustments in the process. The plate isn't really thick enough or wide enough, so that'll end up getting changed. What I've got to do is centralise this jack. Once it's centralised, I should be able to lift. So with that, you can see that's now roughly in place. And then kind of trying to get it to lift without moving. Bear with me a minute, I'll get this thing resorted. A slightly different perspective on this. Hopefully it should go right. Yeah, lifting cautiously. Yep. Now got clearance. And hopefully there's enough clearance. Where's out? bit of effort. One bogie set out and the next bogie set coming in. Okay, for this different camera position you see the two riding plates. That's those two rectangular plates and the pivot cup, which is right here. So the bogie pivot goes inside that, and these pair of rollers that you can see here should be about 1 or 2 millimeters off that riding plate. So this will give you some idea. There is not a great deal of space underneath this. So while we've got the arse end up in the air, you can see the Anderson plug. You can see where I've got the terminal block for the rear motor to connect onto. And as we come up underneath, you'll notice on the coupling there's a valve spring on the inside as well as on the outside. So I've cut the two recesses away for the wheel flanges to go through, and further back there's another two, same at the other end. And as you can get an idea, once this comes down there's very little space in which to play with. So hopefully once this is down and on the bogie, you've also got to remember too, I've got this available. Up here I'm going to be putting a hook, a little wire hook, to hold this cable, oh there we are, hold this cable out of the way. So that's another process to be done today, but for the illustration of things, I shall wheel this back under the rail car, and hopefully you'll get to see how it looks. Okay, it won't go down straight off, it'll need a bit of realigning, so that's something to be expected. So if I come down to just off it, I might be able to see exactly what I'm doing. Might add, while we're at this point, you can see a bit of light shining in underneath. It is misaligned at the moment. There's the bogie side frame, there's the underneath. You can see the other wheel arch recesses I've cut into it. So this will just give you an idea. There will be a little bit of mucking around to get it sitting central on its pivot. Okay, let this one down. That is now sitting beautifully on its bogie pivot. Let's have another look. Okay, you can now see, I'll put this into here, there really isn't a great deal of room. Move the torch out the way a bit. Not even easy for me to get the camera into. So let's see if we can squeeze the camera underneath. Slide the torch up from underneath as well. Yeah. Managed to get the camera underneath the railcar floor. So this here will show you what little space I have available. There's a lot crammed in. Yes, I need to make some adjustments up underneath here. But that'll be sorted out very soon. So I hope this is interesting for you people watching my video. And sorry if I make you feel sick by moving the camera around like I am, but in order to have this camera go where I need it to go, and without being rude of course, I'll give you some idea. That's the back end of the bogie frame, which is just 30mm by 30mm tubing with another like 30mm tubing sitting underneath it. Again, you can see the two central spars, which is angled steel. I think that's 40 by 40mm for memory, and the end of it is C-channel. Railcar's about 3 metres length, then another 250mm worth of driver's compartment. And you can see up underneath here the wheel arch that I've cut in for the flange. You see where the motor sits. And I've got to move myself around here. I'll get that torch back again. If I move this cable out of the way, bear with me a minute, that gets it out of the way. This is the opposite side, as you can tell. So there's underneath the Anderson plug and the terminal block. That'll all go up underneath here once I've got things sorted. I will have to cut the plug off the motor wires. But yeah, you can see here underneath that there is very little room for movement. So there's a section here that's got to be angle ground away with an angle grinder. That way the motor can then swing left and right as required. There's only about a finger space between the top of the motor, or even 2 finger spaces between the top of the motor and the underside of the floor, which really is not a great deal of movement. So you might be wondering as to how I've gone on the other rail car. Same sort of distance, same sort of clearances, but again it hasn't seemed to be too much of an issue. But yeah, you can sort of see how things look underneath here. Oh gee whiz, I've got to lay on the ground to do this shot. I do have my ramp and I will get that out in a while, and hopefully with this up on the ramp you'll get a better view of it. But laying on the ground is not necessarily ideal, especially when it's cool. But I'll try and get that light into there, not very easily. There we go. So yeah, you can see by that, feeding the camera up underneath the back end, there's a lot more work still to be done. Okay, these are the borrowed pair of bogies I've been using for near on 2 years. This is what you call a standard box frame style bogie. Again, the pivot's in the centre there. The slot is cut out for whatever purpose it was originally intended for. But as you can see, the coil springs on this are on the inside, hidden out of view. That's where all your suspension's taken up. That allows these axles to go up and down independent of each other. Take the roughest of track, and still be a rigid box frame type of bogie. Axle box covers are simple, just a bit of sheet steel, and they're folded. I can come around this angle, there you are. Fold at 90 degrees there. And for those who don't realise it, there's actual 3-degree taper on the wheel. So if we come in close here, you see the flanges are wearing a bit thin, but as we come on up, you may or may not be able to see that taper. Now the tread taper, which I'm referring to, is here, 3 degrees. Up here there's a front angle on the flange. I forget now, I think it's a 12-degree angle for memory. And there's usually a back angle on the back of the flange, allowing for going through check rails and stuff. So there are certain standards you've got to work to or adhere to. Certainly in Australia we've got the Australian Affiliation of Live Steamers, otherwise known as AALS. For memory I've got that title correct. But yeah, I know it's definitely AALS, and they have certain tolerances. Like here, back to back on the wheels. I'll get this camera correct. So the inside face to inside face used to be 171 mils, 0.5, or 171.5 millimeters between the inside face to inside face. I believe it's now down to 170 or 171 millimeters. So there's a certain wheel thickness. That's on average 25 mil front to back. The flange thickness itself is generally around 6 mil by 6 mil depth, thereabouts. So for those contemplating miniature railways, and as you can see here, there's the shadow, 7¼ inches there. As we come to here, we've got the 5-inch gauge rail. Bloody leaves. Get rid of them and come back. So yeah, so you got the 5-inch gauge off the 7¼ We've got the 3.5 mil coming in off this rail. So therefore, in the centre, we have 3.5 inch from that rail to that rail. It's a 5-inch gauge, and the outer two being the 7¼ Funny thing is, in this area here, it's about 48 millimeters. Which is a little bit bigger than G-scale, which happens to be 45 mil. So I could actually run G-scale into there as well. And eventually this is planned to go all the way to the other end of the line. At the moment we've got Bumblebee and its carriage parked in the tunnel. And there you go, you can see inside my tunnel alright. And a little viewing window for when it comes to Christmas time. And yeah, all the brickwork we've got. There is a difference between the old stuff and new stuff. Self-adhesive brick paper. Well, it's actually professional sign sticker. So yeah, I don't mean to ruin your illusions. But yeah, so the whole track is planned to be multi-gauge from one end to the other. Moving on from the borrowed bogie and down at track level. These are the correct bogies supposed to be underneath this rail car, and that's how they look. They're designed for high speeds, all terrain, a bit like a full drive. So a little step here which I made up, made 8 of these things years ago, 4 per rail car. Underneath here where the queen post and truss rods are, this is going to become another toolbox to sit underneath. As I'll give you an under the rail car tour. At this point you can see I've still got the other borrowed bogie now sitting here, and the local station horn is there. Not necessarily easy to see. There it is. The VE SS series Commodore. That's just temporarily mounted until the tool tray gets put in. That tool tray will be in underneath here. and as we come through I shall be putting the front bogie into here very soon. Otherwise, that's how the borrowed bogie looked underneath the railcar. Down here are the front connections for the front motor. I've just looped it around temporarily because it's unpowered electrically. And you can see up underneath the nose of the railcar where the hidden coupling sits and the safety chains. Or safety chain, no. So this will give you some idea what it's like to look underneath my railcar. Okay, looking underneath the front end of my railcar, what a lot of people don't know or don't realise, some of my forethoughts and foreplanning is how am I going to connect on should the railcar need to tow somebody or should I need to be towed by somebody. So down here I've got two little handmade locks that I've made up, simple bit of bent steel, and the front door folds down. As that comes up, swing this bit of flat bar into place. What I'm going to have to do first, let's pull that out, swing the flat bar down, there's my coupling. So the idea of that, I can now be towed, and there's the chopper. So there's enough room to go nose to nose with the other rail car. It gives me plenty enough clearance to go to another carriage. And because of the rules of the Australian live steamers, when you're using a chopper, you've got to have a safety chain. So there's enough safety chain to get me to the next carriage. So I don't know if you can actually see that too clearly. So the idea is this chain is fixed at one end, but what I'm doing, I'm using D-shackles, so should the chain get buggered up, I can easily replace the chain. Bring the camera in for you. There's the anchor point. You see the D-shackle up underneath the floor. And basically the other side of this, if I swing this coupling out the way, there we go. That's done as just a hook. It's a bit of flat bar which is welded to a plate. It's got a certain angle and all that. It's a bit hard for me to see here. I've got sunlight reflecting off my viewfinder. So basically it's a simple hook. I can show you at the other end what it looks like. That's underneath the cab floor. That's where the driver's seat's bolted. There's two of these bolts somewhere. There it is, I think, yep. So they're the two for the driver's seat. But yeah, you can see under the front end, again, there isn't a great deal of space. But this allows that extra distance from under the cab floor. This is also, if I can get into here, got a valve spring front and back. The pivot point, yeah, it looks like the nut could wind off at any minute, but doesn't really matter. Not at this point. That will be done up a little bit later. I don't really want to be doing up a nylock until everything's all locked in place. You see where the wiring comes down under the floor? Hopefully. Oh, it's going to be in the way, is it? There we go. So there you go. So basically, and this is not in service, and this needing to be in service, swing the coupling out the way. Get the safety chain. find that hook. There it is. Hang that safely over the top of that. Door down. And all going well, nobody will know any different. Didn't take me too long. I think the thought behind it took more. So there you go, folks. That's my second rail car as it is in April 2026. I'm looking forward to getting this thing finished this year, all going well. And hopefully we'll be able to see it out on the main line. Certainly by December if we can. Come down to the back end again to try to illustrate what I was saying about the front coupling. Again, bit of flat plate welded to a bolt, D-shackle on the end of it, safety chain comes through, another bit of flat plate with a hole drilled in the centre, a couple of slots cut, and there you have it. So that's how the WA chopper system works. I can demonstrate that a bit clearer in a moment, so bear with me. Okay, here's Bumblebee's carriage. Just uncovered the part of it. Right, so when we wheel these up, still coming off a corner onto a straight, but you can see I'll get all this done, undo the safety chains, just throw the chopper into place. Two choppers together, and in case they come apart, do this for you. There's a safety chain. This one's a smidge long, that's no drama, it's easy enough shortened down. So you can see here the safety chains across, that's more or less correct length, that one. This one's a smidge long, that's easily sorted, no major drama on that. If we've come back a couple of inks. So that's the connections between rail cars, technically speaking. So all I've got to do now is get this cord sorted, and that I'll need to get up on my ramp, which you'll see in another one of my YouTube videos. And all going well, I'll be able to get you a better view from up underneath the rail cars.